Alright guys, Hayzink here, welcome back to the channel for another video. And this is the first video on what's going to be an ongoing series. And I'm going to do a deep dive on every character in the game. They're all going to have their individual focused video, which means if you are a veteran player, a new player, or someone who's played the game for ages and doesn't really know what they're doing, you will have a point of reference for every character within the game. We're going to be doing a deep dive, talking about what makes the characters good, how they work, what kind of teams they work on, and really if they are ultimately worth your investment or not. So hopefully, if you like a character, you will find a way within this series to use that character to their fullest potential. To ease people in, I'm going to talk about a character that some of you may already know quite a lot about. You might already know how to get the best out of this guy, but I know from my comment section that quite a lot of people still haven't seen the light and they still don't know just how good this guy is. We are going to start off with the Indian yoga master himself. We're going to talk about Dhalsim. OG Dhalsim, Flame Dhalsim, who you've probably heard spoken about as probably one of, if not the best DPS characters within the entire game. How do you get him to that though? Well, there is some caveats you have to use to make sure you are getting the most out of Dhalsim. And to talk about that before we see examples of just how good he can be, we need to take a look at his kit and see exactly what parts of his kit are what you need to focus on to make sure you are getting the most out of this guy. So when it comes to using Dhalsim within your combo chains, ideally, but not all the time, ideally you want to use his super and his C3. Those are going to be the two attacks that pay off the most for you and provide you with the biggest amount of damage. Okay, the reason for this is his C1, when you have enough penance built up, it will sometimes, when you hit 5 stacks, it will launch 2 of his large fireballs. Okay, now those will not only do damage themselves, they will lay a fire carpet, which will give you persistent damage to the characters that you're fighting. As well as that, your C3 is a large area of effect. Okay, it's going to hit a lot of characters multiple times, doing a lot of damage, and it's going to help you clear stages quite a bit. Okay, now along with that, on a C3, you're also going to build up flame stacks. Okay, burn flame stacks. It's going to give you more ongoing damage, which is really going to deplete the HP of the enemy that you're fighting. If you're fighting a boss, it's really going to ramp up the amount of damage that is going to that boss. Now, the thing about Dhalsim though is to make him shine, he needs investment. Okay, if you are someone who cannot see the power that this guy has behind him, the chances are you do not have him built. Okay, this character 100% without fail needs to have both fighting spirit built and he has to have his cars, and I'll talk about why now. Now first off, his fighting spirit. Okay, with his fighting spirit, when you have it leveled all the way to 30, it's going to do various things that essentially make the rest of his kit absolutely pop off, right? When you reach 10, okay, it is going to give you a greater chance of burn using the fire carpet, which comes off of the super attack. Okay, when you get that to 20, that chance rises even more. Okay, but the most important one is when you get it to level 30, his C3 is guaranteed to inflict burn on the enemy. Okay, and as we've spoken about already, burn is key. It's going to give you a lot of damage against the enemies that you're fighting. Okay, now when it comes to his cars, the reason that you need to have his cars is he will basically do Yoga Tower for free, right? Now we'll go over Yoga Tower in a second, but he will basically do Yoga Tower for free, which will not only increase your flame damage, okay, it will essentially just make him hit so goddamn hard, and you will be gaining penance as well. because the thing about him, like I mentioned before, when he hits a certain number of stacks, I think it's 5, he will start popping off double fireballs. In fact, I think it's 10 and then he uses 5. He'll start throwing out these double fireballs, and that's when you will start to see your damage massively ramping up using this guy, okay? Now, there's some tricks to Dhalsim. With Dhalsim, you may have heard people talking about stalling, okay? And if you don't know what they're talking about, that can sound like a bit of an alien concept to you. What stalling is depending on the characters that you have within your roster, you can essentially use other characters to delay the enemy's attacks, the amount of power that they're dishing out. Now, not everyone's going to have this unit, but I'm just going to use this unit as an example. You've got Flame Chun-Li, right? Flame Chun-Li does not do a lot of damage on her C1 or her super and her C2. But what she does do is build up flame penetration. So what a lot of people do is they will use Chun-Li's C1 or super, then they will use Dhalsim's C1, which is his yoga tower, then they will use her C2. Now, if you don't have her, you can use different units. Basically, what you want to do is use a unit that is not going to cause too much damage on the super and the C2. The whole point behind this strategy of delaying is to allow you to do even more yoga tower stacks with Dhalsim, allowing you to ramp up his damage when you actually start unleashing your combo chain, which is going to ultimately end in him doing his C3. Now his C1 is going to really help you, but his C3 is probably the most important part for dishing out massive damage, okay? But when you are doing those yoga tower stacks, you are gaining so much. Not only are you gaining that additional 5% to flame damage, you are also getting additional from his passive as well, okay? Which is really going to help you quite a bit. So basically what's happening is you're gaining flame damage and dodge from his passive, but from doing your yoga tower as well, you're also gaining more flame damage and effect accuracy, which is going to mean that those additional burn chances that you've got, there's more chance of them actually landing because you've got a higher effect accuracy, right? So with all that in mind, what you now need to know is how you maximize that damage using characters that are available to you to run in teams. So now we're going to talk about who is best to run in a kind of support role with this guy. Now, when it comes to free to play, there is one character that stands above all, in my opinion, for support pretty much on any team that dishes out fire damage, but especially if you are going to be running Dhalsim, and that is going to be Fei Long, right? The reason that Fei Long is so good to have on support is because his assist will give you an additional 12% flame and burn damage, okay? Now, the good thing here is Dhalsim's entire kit is flame and burn, which means you are going to be boosting what he does by an additional 12%, okay? Remember, you have effects that are going to do flame damage and apply burn when you're using Dhalsim. So it means that both of them are going to get an additional boost of 12%. Now, the thing I'll say about Fei Long though is he should not necessarily be overlooked as a character that can go on your team, because he does have a skill called Flame Vulnerability, and that can stack up to 3 times. And the thing about Flame Vulnerability is you use it as a C1, so if you were using, say, a character like Summer Elena, who's going to give you healing and stuff without using a combo slot, it means obviously your C1 slot is freed up. And for a team build where you're not building up the Yoga Tower as your C1, and you're just doing your super and your C3 with Dhalsim, then technically speaking, in your C1 slot, this guy can function, because Flame Vulnerability, what it will actually do is it will increase flame damage on the target by 10%, right? But it stacks up to 3 times. So that means 30% additional flame damage. The thing about flame vulnerability as well is when you have got this guy with fighting spirit built up to, I think it's level 10 that you need to have it built up to, flame vulnerability will increase burn damage by an additional 15% as well. Okay, now I believe that stacks, because obviously if you've got 3 stacks it's the same, so that would be an additional 45% burn damage, right? And on top of that, you're also going to have an additional 30% flame damage as well, meaning this guy can really help you put out quite a lot of damage on the other characters, on the enemy, because he is so good in 2 different roles. He's probably not going to be used as much on your team, because if you are using a good build for Dhalsim, you might have other flame characters in there with him, and it means if he's up top, he's going to be boosting everyone. And he doesn't need to actually sit on Dhalsim. So if you've got Dhalsim on a team with, let's just say, Bison, the best unit to put Fei Long on would actually be Bison, because the way this character functions is he will boost people as long as the assisted fighter is alive. And obviously if you're running Bison, he's usually the last in your team to die. So you put this guy on Bison, and then that way you can continue to roll and get more and more damage. Now, when it comes to free to play options, unless you're going to start putting people like Mayor Cody, who will obviously just overall increase damage, you might want to keep Dhalsim alive. So for me, a really good option for support would be Abel. Now Abel's a cut and paste character that can be support for a hell of a lot of teams, but when it comes to Dhalsim, because you're playing this game of building him up and building him up, whatever is the last hit he makes is going to hit harder than every previous hit. So the longer you can keep the guy alive, the more payoff you're going to get for all your persistence and your patience. So I really do class Abel as a great support to have on this guy. So when it comes to free to play, I think the 3 best options are probably going to be Fei Long 100%, then you're looking at your Mayor Cody, and for survivability alone, I would be having Abel up there. Now when it comes to paying players, there is 2 characters who will make this guy pop off. Flame Chun-Li. Flame Chun-Li will absolutely make Dhalsim's numbers pop off. But again, she's a character that can function very well on a team with this guy, because like I've said, you can use her to delay. She will inflict her flame penetration, which is going to make flame damage do even more. And ultimately, you've got a bit of a toss-up. She does work very well on a team with Dhalsim. Now another character who people find it hard to find teams round about, and honestly, he doesn't work that well on a team with Dhalsim, but he supports him very well, would be Fashion Ken. Fashion Ken would be an absolutely fantastic support to put on Dhalsim. He really helps with damage numbers of flame characters, and he's someone that if you've got a unit that's inflicting burn, he is going to really help you, and he's going to help you push much higher numbers. So that is, in a nutshell, Dhalsim. Why Dhalsim is so good. His numbers just scale so high, okay? He's best used in boss battles. He'll help you in stages. PvP, not so much, but you will usually find that in multi-team setups, especially in these new events and stuff, people are always going to have a Dhalsim team, and it's just because this guy absolutely goes crazy. His damage numbers are probably higher than Viper, and Viper has soul power. Dhalsim will get soul power, and when he gets soul power, he's going to go absolutely crazy. So if you do not have investment in this guy, now is the time to do it. He's not going to age out. He's always going to find a place in one of your multi-team setups, and he is the reason that his usability, how good he is the reason I've decided to use him as the opening unit that we do in these new, more detailed breakdowns. I've got some ideas of who I want to do next, but it's an open forum. You let me know, who would you like to see a deep dive on next. But this is episode 1 in the bag. I've been Hayzink, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Peace.